Are you ready for a reboot? Welcome to the Sheila Mac Show, reality at its finest. History reminds us those hit hardest often become the change makers. This year, we've all hit crazy economic, social, and emotional rock bottoms. We all get knocked down. Something hits globally, locally, personally. It affects our health, finances, our relationships. We have to recreate a business or career. Each show, Sheila and her special guest will be sharing their reboot stories, guiding you with real solutions to upgrade and up-level emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually, and financially. Here on NBC's KCAA Radio. If you're ready to pull yourself up by the bootstraps and bra straps, enjoy a listen. Here's Sheila.
Welcome to the Sheila Mac Show, reality at its finest. Here we have real people sharing real stories and actionable steps to help you reinvent, rebuild, and reboot your business and personal life on your terms. I'm your host, Sheila Mac, and today we have special guest, Yasmine Brown. Yasmine attended American University in the Washington, D.C. area and graduated with a BS in accounting. Once she graduated from American University, she went straight into banking and worked for HSBC Bank, where she obtained the Series 7 and 63, also known as the General Securities Representative exam. Now, soon after that, she landed a hedge fund accounting position and accounted for 12 portfolios, which had a net asset value of about $1.5 billion. She now works at a nonprofit that places college students at their dream job on Wall Street. Although her career has changed, her love for math has not. Yasmine is the founder of the Juice Game, a roll and move tabletop board game that playfully exposes math skills. Oh, wow. That's incredible. Yasmine hopes that the Juice Game can serve as a fun way to learn with family and friends. All right. Welcome to the show, Yasmine.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
And I'd like to start off, I'll take these off, by asking, okay, this show actually came about based on my new best-selling book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action in any situation. And we've had more situations than we could ever fathom in the last couple of years now.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I'd love to start off with asking you if you have some advice or maybe a story you could share with the audience about a time in your business or personal life where you experienced a tough situation and how you got back on track.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And thank you so much for asking me that. I feel like we've all experienced a time of adversity in our life. One that I can share with you that I feel is super relevant probably for your audience is when I did do the switch from my last profession to my current one.
Mm-hmm.
So currently, as you mentioned, I am a coach and I help students land their dream jobs on Wall Street and corporate 50 companies. But before that, I was a hedge fund accountant at a hedge fund administrator firm. And basically what they do is just make sure that the hedge fund is running smoothly. And then they hire accountants, third parties, to make sure that everything is good. Definitely after Bernie Madoff. So hedge fund accounting is super important. Mm-hmm. But I did find that it was hard for myself to connect due to a lack of diversity in the industry. And I've always felt that representation is super important, which is why I currently work at SEO, which focuses on not only coaching students to land their dream job, but diversity and inclusion on all spectrums. So I would say that's what really started my journey in storytelling. And I can get a little bit more into that later.
Wow, that's incredible. So that is a tough thing sometimes when we have to change careers and make a decision to go with our heart. And, this heart-centric business instead of what we're supposed to do, quote unquote. So that tends to happen that when we are on that path, for those listening in, maybe you think, I really want to do this, but I'm stuck doing something else that I'm really good at, but it's not my heart. Just keep bringing it in. And it's funny, sometimes things won't work out or, the company will have a turnover, something will happen and you'll be pushed toward your real truth and passions in life. And so listen to those little signs. One of the things I shared was one time I had lots of properties. I had gift stores starting at 23 and I bought these buildings, but at a certain time after 17 years, I rented all the buildings out and just spent time with my kids, got a teaching degree and taught at their schools and just had time with my family. And all the buildings were vacant at once. It was ridiculous. It was like everybody just ran out of business. And I was like, oh my gosh, this has never happened. I said, I know at night I'll Uber drive first. And this is the universe conspires for our best interest. So there I am doing the Uber driver job. Okay. And I pick up this sweet little couple. They said, can we stop at the grocery store? Can you wait? No problem. And we're having a nice conversation. I'm sitting there. Some drunk person rear ends me. Wow. And it was a hit and run. Other people witnessed. So my insurance covered it. And I said, I think the universe is telling me that that is not my my occupation for life. And it was like, I get the message. Okay, really. And so that sometimes those things happen in a little way. And if you're not listening, it'll happen louder and louder until you get the attention shows up.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. So now, you always loved math, or how did you get into all this accounting and hedge funds?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I have always loved math. Math has always just come a little easy for myself, and I find it pretty interesting that you can solve something that has an exact answer. So I think that's the certainty of math definitely attracts me to it. But like you said, I did major in accounting. I took my first accounting course in college and pretty much nailed the exam. And my professor was like, you should definitely consider being an accounting major. At the time, I thought I wanted to go into broadcast journalism, which is a completely different, completely different career. But I decided to kind of take, what made sense for me at the time and do what made sense for me at the time. So I do enjoy math, but I enjoy a lot of other things as well, like art and science.
Yeah. Yes, that is something. And there's ways to combine all our passions. When I had my gift stores open at 23 going forward, I ended up the heart of my store. I came through foster care as a kid. So the heart of my store was I created a program, and close to 200 young adults emancipating from foster care went through the training program and then got hired at like the best companies.
Wow.
Nobody wanted to hire these kids. And those were that was the heart. Those were my kids. I had a social worker was my main manager that was, just doing retail. And she was top sales at Nordstrom's and had a social working degree and loved the kids. And so the heart of the business was so different, but it helped the community. And we were really blessed because the clients, everybody that walked in the door felt that. And so even if you're doing that and you think, how can selling stuff to people help other people? So there's always a weird, I don't know, I was ahead of my time, I guess, but it was a weird way to do. I was like, I just need to fund how to help these kids. And I just had fun. And I think when you're younger, there's something like there's no fear. I didn't have a lot of responsibilities at the time. And so it wasn't like, I was like, well, I got nothing to lose. I'll just try. And it did really well. So that's it sometimes. And we think we have these secure jobs. And now we realize that most of us that we don't have anything to lose because look, what happened with this Corona, which I liked it better when it was a beer.
Me too.
Yeah. And I don't even drink, but it's one of those things where people thought they had jobs that they could depend on. Or entire careers. I mean, and even the entertainment industry has shifted. Everything is changing, and really, it's this growing pains before things get better, I believe. So now I raised 6 children of my own. I adopted three of my own, and so we had this beautiful family. And one of the things we did a lot of is played games. And Monopoly and the cash flow game were our 2 favorites growing up. So my kids have this great idea of a business and accounting and money and all that. So my goal was to teach them and many times they won and taught me. So, so I'd love to hear more about how your game works, how it came about.
Sure. So just to piggyback off of what you said, you definitely were ahead of your time. And there is a type of business that does exactly what you did, putting a mission first and then profit later. And it's called an L3C. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, yeah, and it exists in Maine. And I know that because that's where I started my entrepreneurship journey. And at the time, I didn't know I was starting a publisher company.
Hmm.
But that's what sparked the interest with juice. And so when I was living in Maine as a hedge fund accountant, I definitely felt like I lacked a community. And I had a niche for storytelling. And so I decided to start an organization called It Girl Association, which is now called It Girl Empire. And it's a
Mhm.
publisher today. But at the time, I wasn't quite sure what it was. I just knew that I liked storytelling, I liked art, and then I have this really academic side to me as well. And
Mhm.
so fast forward to 2000 and I want to say 19, I thought of the idea of Juice.
Mhm.
And it is a roll and move tabletop board game, as mentioned, and Monopoly was the inspiration for it. I don't know if you can tell or have seen photos of it, but Monopoly was my favorite game as well growing up. And so I figured my first one should be something that I grew up on, something that I feel comfortable with, but a twist with actually learning and not just strategizing how to win. And so there is an accounting background behind the game. The whole point is to take over the lemonade industry on the board game by
Mhm.
answering as many math questions as possible. And so it's great for kids because they can learn and play at the same time. And I think that incorporating a play aspect while learning kind of hides the learning that goes with it, kind of like hiding your vegetables,
All right.
in a meal for kids. And so I hope that juice can definitely help kids like you who are or your children, excuse me, who are interested in learning and also playing, with their family as well.
Yes, that's so healthy. And I think we ordered new games, board games. I mean, my kids are grown now in college and above, but back then they we had board games, and over the years I had a house burned down in Ventura, California, and lost a lot of our, things like that. So when the pandemic hit, we actually ordered a whole bunch of board games because we were like, what are we going to do? Books and board games and movies and walks, lots of walks. So that was it. But that's the first thing that we had to have so that we wouldn't go crazy sitting at home. We're not homebodies really. So for us, it was a major adjustment.
Yeah.
Now, for those listening in, look for educational games. In fact, in that store, I had an entire section. It was 5,000 square feet. So I had a small, like, little room area filled with all the educational games. There are so many educational games that you don't realize. And I would let my kids help me do the order. We would go and place the order, find, source these games. And then the kids would, when they weren't in school, they come over like on the weekend and they play games. And the first store was actually in this community in Montrose, California, with mostly older grandparent age people was the demographic of who lived there. And so they would see my children playing these really difficult, like, brain games and learning math and English skills, all these different things. And they would buy tons. They would have their hands filled with these games. And so it is a big industry, and it really, I got lucky because I got all the games. I'd get the broken game, the store sample, and that's what we had at home. So we had a lot of games that we lost in that fire.
Lucky you.
Yeah, but it works, and it makes sense, and the kids don't know they're learning so much.
Right,
Yes.
exactly.
And adults, I'm telling you, you can learn too. For me, math was not my thing. Growing up, I was in and out of foster care. You can imagine going to different homes, different schools, all this crazy stuff. And so I was determined to learn. I went and got my degrees, and I also I was a tutor at the Kumon Center, and they made me go through every single Kumon package. to learn. And that was a barter situation, and I would work for them tutoring, and then all my kids got to go through their program for free, which
Okay.
was because I have 6 kids. 6 kids is really expensive, and it doesn't matter how much you earn; it's a lot. And so that was, and I was determined to learn what I missed. And I remember it showing up where I could just do math in my head, and I would beat people typing it into their phone.
Wow.
because I was really bad at math. So it is giving it the time. And that goes for writing, anything, any skill we can learn. It just, you have to give yourself the gift of time to learn.
Right.
It's okay. Yes.
Yeah.
So that was cool. And I would, if parents listening in, sit down with your children, play games with your children, sit down. I would do homework alongside the children, or I would be doing my business homework, I called it, like my books and my things, and they would do their homework, and we'd be together, so they'd see, okay, this is what we do. We all do homework, and then we go play, we go to the park, we go have dinner, whatever. And so that was, children model what we do, not what we tell them, not what they read in a book, but how we're living. So it makes a big difference.
I agree. I have a daughter. She is 1 and almost half. So I definitely can identify and relate, to what you're saying. Right now, she's picking up so much little things, and I'm like, wow, you're really trying to copy me already. It's so cute, but I definitely have to be mindful of what I'm doing so I can be a good role model for my daughter as well.
Yeah. Yes, it's so true. And I, as a teacher later on, I got into teaching, and I did Montessori and Waldorf teaching. And so, and the children got to go free because that's very expensive type of education, these private. And it was really interesting because I learned a lot. And what I noticed is that the parents that overhelp, and you start giving your kids too much, or doing the homework for them, which happened a lot. And I was like, how is this helping your child? You get an A in math today, Mr. or Miss so-and-so, but your child is struggling in class because you don't let them learn.
Wow. Yeah. That's
yeah. And so it's really important. And then even going further, some people will, there was all this news about people paying for their kids to get into these colleges. That's ridiculous. I mean, nothing personal, but you're doing your child, your young adult, such a disservice. First, you're saying, I don't believe in you, so I'm going to pay for you to do this. And then, it's, if they can't survive, if they don't have the academic stability to be there, they're not going to get good grades. And they're not going to pass, and they're not going to be able to stay, and they're going to be disheartened.
Right.
So
and it also takes away from the well-deserving students who deserved to be there.
Exactly.
And did everything they were supposed to do and didn't get in, and don't know why. I definitely feel like I was around that same age where that scandal was going on, and I had a lot of intense target schools.
Yeah.
Some of them I got into, some of them I didn't, but I was really disheartened to hear about that story. Just because I know how hard that I worked for my academic bragging rights, I guess, or just my education in general. And I really hope those parents learn their lesson, because education is serious, and it takes a lot of hard work to be to do your best in school. It's not as easy as it looks, and it can definitely take its toll on one's confidence when they feel like they gave it their all. They have the GPA to get in, but for whatever reason they just didn't get in. So that story was personal.
That is really interesting. That is, and it really bothered me, and I felt sad for those kids that got that situation handed to them, because it was really just how can you actually function? You need to learn how to stand on your own 2 feet. You're better off going to community college or taking CLEP tests. Pay for a tutor if you've got that kind of money. Pay for your child to actually have a tutor help them to learn whatever
Right.
they need to learn so they can actually earn it and get into whatever college they deserve. That, to me, that would be way better. And I tutored lots of children over the years myself, and I paid for my kids to go to tutors when they needed it. That to me was a valid expense, but then they earned their first cars, and they worked part-time jobs, and and there was like, I got this. I did this by myself. I bought the car by myself. And there was that whole different, it's almost like self-confidence.
Independence.
Yes, and that's something that the first child I kind of messed up because 6, and I all the things I never had because I didn't have this home and I didn't have all these beautiful things, and so I gave too much, and there was some resentment, and I said, oh, wait a minute, how I'd be so grateful, but it was different, so it's like, no, you've got to learn to
Right.
stand on your own 2 feet, and then that shifted our relationship. So it's important to keep that in mind, and when we have little ones, enjoy that time. As a mom, you're working, you're creating these incredible businesses, and then you've got your little one at home, and these are moments everybody says, enjoy this time, and then it's hard because, yeah, but I got to pay the bills.
Right.
And so there's that conflict that we get, that I know I definitely had a pull. And I was fortunate with the stores, and the way I attracted my employees is I would run into, quote unquote, when I go to the mall, I would run into the top sales ladies, and we'd talk. And I'd say, oh, I have a baby, and they had children, little babies too. And I said, well, if you work at my store, I can't pay you what these big stores pay you, but I have 2 nannies that are retired Sunday school teachers that watch my babies, and you can have them. They can all play together. And it was like this little mini free childcare thing that happened. And it was wonderful. So creativity is important.
It definitely is. I adore creativity. I consider myself a very creative person, which is why I feel like what I'm doing is a good fit for myself.
Mhm.
During the day, I'm a coach for college students, but in my
Nice.
free time, I'm running this publishing business that allows me to create and tell stories that I feel like aren't really being told. And so I I love the fact that I can connect STEM with storytelling in
Mhm.
a really creative and artsy way.
Yes, that is beautiful. And then you had this experience with the stock market, and
I do, yeah.
it my great aunt, she was like in my grandmother's generation. So she was a generation above, and she was the first woman to work on the stock exchange.
Wow, that's
Yes, and
impressive.
Selma, and she really had to work very hard as a woman in a man's world, especially back then. And, she did really well for herself, and eventually got out because it was tough, but she stayed in quite a while. So it is something that to be able to break through these various differences in how, the equality of working, going to school, getting equal education, which is another thing. I actually worked very hard on the equal education for all, in the US, which we obviously still do not have. And with my beautiful 6 children, I noticed right away the differences in the opportunities. One of my children has a last name, that's Hispanic last name,
Okay,
and had a speech therapy problem.
okay.
And the school said, we are going to put your child in ESL where nobody speaks English. And I was like, but they can, he's just learning to speak English. Okay. Like he can barely speak. We've gone
Right.
through so much speech therapy. that's not going to help him. The doctor writes a note. That's not a good idea. Like the whole thing. And they said, well, it's because we need to meet this quota and the last name fits.
Okay.
They'll get funding. And I was like, okay, that's not going to work for my kid. So we left. And I had to figure out, how do I fund all this alternative education so that everybody has a fair and equal opportunity? But I thought, this isn't right for everybody else. Yeah, I was fortunate enough to be able to go get a teaching degree and work with the kids and all that, but not everybody can do that. And that bothered me a lot.
Yeah, so I can so speech is an incredible thing. I had a speech impediment growing up as well. And I think being able to speak and public speak is a very important skill set. But we have role models like Joe Biden, who also suffered from stuttering, and he's now the president of the United States.
Yeah.
So I think there are some benefits to those type of classes when the intention is there.
Right. Now, yeah, the class they wanted to put him in was only Spanish speaking.
Spanish, yeah, I've heard of it. Yeah, here in Miami.
Like, well, but he doesn't speak a word of Spanish, and the class is taught in Spanish, and he's struggling with English. That wouldn't be fair. Now, he has grandparents that only speak Spanish. Mm-hmm. So and he did learn Spanish. He learned Mandarin. He learned Japanese, and a little bit of German. So he knows languages great now. But at that moment in his development, when he was first grade, that wasn't going to work out. So it definitely, if you do have a child, if you're listening and who has, oh my gosh, they have speech therapy or they're a little bit behind in one thing or another, get as much help as you can. There's lots of free resources now, but also know that that's not forever.
Right. And also practice makes perfect. I definitely will never say that I'm perfect at public speaking, but 2-3 years ago, it terrified me. I don't think I would have been able to come on here and do a podcast with you. Here I am now. I think that sometimes we fear things that could, be our calling as well. Mm-hmm. So I would say as well to any parents that are listening out there, if your kid has a certain fear to something that isn't quite putting them in danger, maybe let them explore it a little bit, encourage them to explore it a little bit more, because it could be their calling. You just never really know.
Yes. Sometimes we just have to step out of that comfort zone. Exactly. Now, I'd love to ask you if you have advice for college students or parents of college students listening in, since you work with them and do the coaching with those students.
Yeah, so now it's a pretty unique time. I have a brother who is in college right now, and he's experiencing things that I never really went through, on top of all of the anxiety and pressures of going through college. I would say definitely consider what makes the most sense for you and your young adult. Yeah. Sometimes going to a college far away might be the best for them to gain that independence and confidence that we spoke about earlier. And then some kids, I feel like, should be at home almost with their parents, to have that support network, to have that shoulder to really lean on, because college can be very overwhelming. It can be very scary, and there's a lot that goes into it. And I can't even imagine how much that pressure has increased given the new things that we deal with as young adults, like social media. And really social media wasn't that big of a thing when I started my experience at American University. At least Instagram wasn't. Facebook was, but not Instagram. And so there's so many new distractions that can really derail someone's progression in school. So I would just make sure that wherever they're going, location-wise, it's a great fit for that student, to make sure there aren't any distractions. They can kind of just get through and get out as easy as possible.
Yes, that makes sense. And, I do have two of my babies that are young adults that returned home because the dorms closed down. And they actually one of them made the choice to take a break, but not really. So she did community college online because she said, I don't want to pay these prices for online. And so she earned 3 degrees over the lockdowns in her area of study. And now she's back at school with her working towards psychology licensing and this and that. And it's nice to finally this last few weeks, she barely started going on campus again, because where we are, they're barely allowing a certain small percentage. And so it's just been really interesting, and it's hard on young people because I have my young family, and it's difficult socially.
Yeah.
A lot of them went to get jobs, extra jobs, even though they're going to school, just so they could socialize and talk to people. Because it's different. In a way, maybe it's protecting us from some things, but the college experience has changed, and
It has.
all you have is the studies. You don't get to go socialize as much now with all the different rules and depending on the time and state you're in.
Right.
So, yeah, it's
what we do. It's kind of, it's the time we live in, and they're not alone. All of us can't really socialize as we would.
Yeah, I know. I know. I'm totally feeling it because I would travel. I did a lot of travel with the Tony Robbins group, and I traveled 7 years straight, and I had a blast and doing consulting and coaching and traveling all over and seeing everyone in the world. And, you're in this room with 15,000 people and everybody's hugging and laughing and dancing around. And then you get stuck at home and I'm like, what in the world? This is not, I don't even know what to do. How many times can you clean your house? Right. So, and then nobody's coming over to visit that much because they're all afraid or whatever. You're like, or they can't travel to come see me. And so it's like, and nobody's going to even see the house. I get to enjoy it, but there's only so much. Yeah. So it was tough. I'm glad things are starting to open up again, and I hope they stay that way. And now if I have, let's pretend that I had young ones that were just in high school, getting ready to prepare for getting ready to apply to these colleges. What advice do you have for that group?
Oh, that's a good age range. I would say do your research on each school and almost treat it as if you were applying to a job. So when you do a job search, you really do your research on the company and see where you fit in regards to culture, fit, etc. So I personally believe that each college has its own culture. It has its own type of people that it attracts. And so that research is super important to complete and do and understand. The reason why I did attend American University was because it was really huge on internships. And they had sent me a letter saying that 85% of the students that go to AU graduate with 2 internships. And I already had an internship under my belt at that time. I interned at a law firm in high school. And so I knew that AU was the right school for me because not only was it in the middle of DC, but it really valued hands-on work and internships. So that made it a good fit for me. Funny story, I was actually in line a week before to register for school in San Francisco at San Francisco State University, and ended up leaving because the line was too long. So I'm glad I received that letter in the mail right in time at a different school. But yeah, do your research and think about how that school is a good fit for yourself.
Right. Now that makes me think of, sometimes it's like what I started this conversation with, the thing about we're redirected. You think, oh, I want to go to this school because my friends are going there. It's the best school, whatever. And you're redirected to something even better. So I got my first degree, was just like in computer training and information systems. I needed the money. And I worked at my first job at 18 years old. I was working at NASA JPL. So it was great. Yeah, it was really good. And my parents were like, you're going to work here 50 years and then die. And, you know, it was that whole old school mindset. And I was like, I don't think I can handle it for 50 years. I would get the carpal tunnel from typing, and I was in physical pain. And then they would have me lead the safety training classes. Now that's me talking to people. I'm good at that. Sitting at that computer doing programming was really hard. And so I kept being redirected. And then on the side, I would sell things at the swap meet. And, you know, at first it was garage sales and all that. And then that's how I ended up opening that first gift store at 23 and leaving the programming behind for good. But I did actually build my website mostly because the people that tried to build it, like, kind of left in the middle of the project after they got my money. So I did that myself. So it does come in handy. You know, it's a good thing to have, but literally you get redirected. Later, I wanted to get another degree after I shut down the stores, and then got the passive income from them and rented them out with all the kids. I wanted to be with them. And, you know, one of the things, I wanted to go to UCLA. And I was a mom. You're a mom. You know, there's this thing. Well, back then, the policy was the first year you have to live on campus. And if I lived up the street, you know, like I could drive there. And I'm like, well, I have little children at home. There's no way this is going to fly for me to just like leave everything and go college life. Right. Not going to happen. And they said, I don't know, this is for active adults between this age and this age. It's a special accelerated business program. And I was like, but it's not for active women in that age group that have children, which they had 2% women, and they didn't know why the numbers were so low. I actually wrote them a letter. I thanked them. I wrote them a letter. I appreciated getting accepted, but there was no way. And I got redirected to a small university, Woodbury. And I got a degree there, and it was Socratic method and presentation. And that to me was like home. I love to talk and work with people and present, and, you know, and later I did UCSB for Montessori teaching. And then I did USC. So I did all that later, and the universities listened because they started actually creating programs where if you have children, you don't have to like live in the dorm.
Makes sense.
It was just like, how is that going to work? What are we going to do with our kids?
Right.
Yeah. And so I was really happy that it worked out. But at the time I was sad that I missed out on the opportunity.
Yeah. But I feel like that happens to all of us. Things don't work out for a reason.
Yes.
And so that's definitely happened to me multiple times. And then a greater opportunity presents itself. So I'm glad you were able to work that out. As a mom, I definitely can. I feel you.
Yeah. That was like, you know, your babies, you'll do anything. We'll walk on fire for our babies.
Right.
First. And so it's like, you know, I'm doing this for them, but not to be apart from them.
Right.
Yes. Now, in my book, I actually have a whole chapter on careers. And one of my topics is a lady that I ran into at a restaurant, and she had grandchildren. So that was her age group. Yeah. Young grandma, let's say, because she had her babies young. And we were just talking because nobody was there. So like, I was like, sit down and eat with me, you know, and we're sitting and talking, and we're having this great conversation. And I was sharing about this book that's coming out and everything. And she said, you know, I never got my high school diploma. I'm so embarrassed, but I got pregnant young, and I had these kids, just like 5 kids, this and that. And she tells me, you know, she doesn't know what to do. She'd love to go to college. That's her dream. And of course, working with all these kids that I had, I was like, well, you can just go take these, you know, you can go tomorrow. And she literally did. And now this is a couple years ago. Now she has this whole new career, and she has a degree. So, yeah. And so if you're thinking about going back to school as an adult, it is never too late. Never too late. Yeah. And what advice do you have for adults that are thinking about going back to school?
Yeah. So yeah, like you said, it's really never too late to go back to school. I think as an adult, we have more responsibilities. And so, as a teenager thinking about going to college, the last thing I thought about was, okay, well, what about the debt that it gives me, or what about the student loans, and what happens after that? So I think as an adult, it's definitely situational, but anything is possible. And I feel like it would just be, as long as you see it fit for your financial situation, I think that it's definitely possible. I know that student loans and grants are definitely helpful. And
Mhm.
so I would say just do the research on that part, because as an adult, we have adult responsibilities.
Yes. Now, I just found out about a university that's online, that's accredited, that is exactly free. I
Really?
think you have to pay for the textbooks, and you
Okay.
could sign up for a scholarship for that too.
Okay.
And I have contacted them to get more information and permission to share about their programs, because that would be such a life changer for so many people. It's all online,
Mhm.
which a lot of things are anyway now.
Mhm.
So that's one thing, and things are changing. Now, for me, every time I went to school, I would take out the loans, and they have this deferment. Anybody that has a college loans, you know about this deferment. So while you're going to school full time or part time, you get a deferment. So that means you don't have to pay the
Right.
loan back until you graduate. And it doesn't usually start accruing interest, or at least back when I was going to college, it wasn't accruing interest while I was in school.
Right. I have heard of that.
Yes, and so what I did, because I was working and going to school, every time I went to school, I was working. And so I would pay so much a month, couple hundred, $150, and I made sure that I paid those loans off before I graduated. And I remember taking fun classes just to pay off the loan first, and then, or one time I did there was zero interest on a credit card for so many 18 months, and so I got that and I paid it off, and then I did some little interesting things to get out of it, and then I kept my little payments, and I didn't pay any interest. And
Nice.
that was my goal. And so there are ways, yes. So if you can pay $50, $100 a month toward your school loans, just a little bit, it's not gonna have that interest while you're in school.
Totally worth it. And
Yeah.
to add, I also have noticed that a lot of the students that I work with have a huge interest in entrepreneurship. And
Mhm.
entrepreneurship doesn't take any, courses. Actually, most courses are free that you can take to understand the field that you're trying to go into. So I would also consider, what is it that you're trying to learn in school? Is it something that falls in the realm of entrepreneurship? And is there other resources like a mentor or a local program that can provide you the resources that you need to get your feet wet in the industry?
Yes. Yes, college is great. It's nice to have a degree. In fact, I did, after I ran all those gift stores, I went back and got all those teaching degrees and everything else. And it was really because everybody else had a degree, and I wanted to see what that was all about, and I wanted to be current in the field, and I enjoyed it, but it was really an experience. And
Mhm.
my work experience and life experience
Mhm.
were far better than the degrees.
Yeah.
I mean, the
I
degree
agree with
taught
you
me how
there.
to study and how to learn and how to listen and how to present a certain way, all these things, and there was great value in them.
Exactly.
Yeah, but the life skills of just go to work for a company. If you want to be like that company, go work with them.
Mhm.
Volunteer
Right.
for organizations doing things you care about, and share the talents you already have, and you'll get a job in a minute. And that's going to help. It's always the way. I've been offered jobs because I volunteered that I never applied for, and they actually said, just fill out the application after the fact to have it on file legally, whatever. But because I was just volunteering.
That's an interesting secret. I've never heard of that, but that's
Oh,
super
it
smart.
worked. And it works in fields I didn't even know. I mean, I got into some political things, helping run campaigns. I didn't know. They said, "What's your party?" I said, "Free Spirit." I didn't even know anything about politics. I
I
knew
love that.
I knew about people and, how to work with them and coordinate. And my best friend's husband was actually running for office. And I was like, oh, this is what the room says. Change your speech like this, do that. And the manager left and they hired me. And then it went from there, so that was just a volunteer. They were like, "You're so good at that." And I was like, "I am." I knew nothing about politics. And you can learn things real fast when you need to. I just love those. They were my best friends, so it was that kind of a thing. And then I got political with the equal education for all over the years, and that's something we still work on with lots of different opportunities and options that weren't available when my kids were little, like charter schools in areas where the schools are failing the students because it's not the right zip code, so they don't have the funding. And also like the opportunity transfer if your student is being bullied, where you can take your child and go to a different school district if you need to. So lots of things like that, but it's a system that's broken and we need to work on that. It needs to be rebuilt. And it's almost like the universe conspires for our best interest. Because everybody got the opportunity to homeschool for a while and be home and see what's really going on, what's being taught in class, because now it's online. And what do I want my children to learn? And so I think that's actually our children that have gone through this crazy time are going to be such incredible leaders through all this, because this is some living history.
We're definitely living through history.
Yeah.
There's always a bright side to everything. I think that COVID-19 has been an emotional and mental toll on everyone, and I hope that we can see the brighter side after this. But the cool thing is that you mentioned is that we have been able to spend more time with the people at home. If you are at home with people, if you're at home alone, then that's kind of a different story. But COVID has been crazy.
Yep. So now I'd love for you to share, we're coming to the end of our talking time. So I'd love for you to share where people can connect with you, students that want to get your coaching for getting into colleges or just to get the game. Where can they connect with you and learn more?
Yeah, so I work for an organization called SEO, Sponsors for Educational Opportunities. And if you are interested in learning more, definitely check out their website, seo.org. They've been around since the, I want to say 60s, since 1963. So they're definitely.
My light fell.
What was that?
My light just fell. That was all by itself.
Oh, no.
Your phone rang and my light fell. So go ahead, repeat that last part. I'm sorry.
They've been around for a long time, so they're pretty well known, and they have a lot of resources to offer. So if you're interested, definitely check them out. And you guys can connect with me. I'm on Instagram as Yasmine_Iman. That's YASMINE_IMON. And you can learn more about Juice on the website at juice.games. And it tells you all about the game. You can see pictures on there, and it explains how to play as well.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, Jasmine, for being a guest on the show.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I had a lot of fun.
And for those tuning in, we'll be back after these messages, so stay tuned. Welcome to the Sheila Mac Show, reality at its finest. Before we get started with today's episode, I would like to thank today's sponsor, and that is Ether Diamonds, the world's most sustainable diamonds and the only diamonds that are actually good for the planet. Ether creates the world's first positive impact diamonds made from air through a process that removes harmful air pollution, captures the carbon from it, and retasks the carbon to a higher purpose in their one-of-a-kind diamonds. These are 100% real diamonds with real impact. In fact, every carat of ether diamonds offsets your personal carbon footprint for over a year. They're some of the highest quality diamonds you could buy and certified by IGI, the world's largest independent laboratory for testing and grading gemstones and fine jewelry. Now you're no longer stuck having to choose between mined and regular lab-grown diamonds, both of which harm the environment. Ether offers the only truly sustainable diamonds on the market, requiring no ethical or environmental trade-offs. They're the only guilt-free diamonds available in the world. To learn more about these revolutionary diamonds from air, visit their website at etherdiamonds.com. That's ether spelled with an AE. And follow them on social media at Ether Diamonds. AETHERDIAMONDS at Ether Diamonds. All right, and now let's go on to the show. In each person's lifetime, there will be a series of waves of rock bottom events. These times are when your identity needs a reboot. These are the sacred and historic times that offer you a chance to reinvent and reboot your business and personal life on your terms. I hope that your life is always blessed and that you will never need a guide. However, if you need help, accountability, community, and connection, along with a rock-solid reboot plan, then my new book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, will be like having me by your side. It is now available on Audible, Amazon, Kindle, and includes a free mini online course, meditation, plus 11 additional guided application workbooks. Why would you want to get married when you're not ready? Or, but it's a different thought process. And so when you're in a relationship and somebody's thinking, yes, we're going to get married because that's what you're supposed to do. And the other person's like, no, I'm suffocated. I don't want to do that right now. Now is not the time. And it may be your now in that you don't want to be tied down to that model. Or if you find somebody that's completely free like you are and you're like, hey, we can have fun and we can do this and we have our agreements, you may jump into that relationship and be like, this is the best ever. But if you don't find something that aligns with where you're at in your life, it's kind of not being in integrity and honest with the other person. If you're pretending, I'm going to marry you, I'm going to show up, we're going to have this or that. So integrity, look at this. Yes. So integrity is everything. I mean, I don't know, as a woman, I think it's really important to just be honest about things when you go into relationships.
A lot of people, though, when you say that, they think, oh, I can change him. I can change her. And yes. I can change myself. I can't change you. Mm-hmm. And so when people start getting into this whole, maybe I can change him, maybe I can change her, you're not in it for the right, you're not in the relationship for you. Exactly. You're in it for, you're not in it for them, you're in it for you.
That's right, because the essence of the person, who they're being, who they show up as on this planet, that's the beauty in them. That's the part that you love about them. And if you don't let them or want them to be who they are, then you're loving a fantasy person. That's not your person.
Exactly.
So, yes, it's really important. And there are people that align that, they want freedom and they have a wonderful companionship and fun, and that's what they want. So, success in a relationship is a different definition. If you surveyed 1,000 people, it'd be different. So to have two people attracted to each other that align on that, come together, it takes time. And I love that, though. Honesty and integrity. If you are just tuning in, this is NBC's Sheila Mac Show here on KCAA Radio, the station that leaves no listener behind. I'm your host, Sheila Mac, and today I have a couple of announcements. First, I would like to hear from you. That's right. I would love to hear from you. to be honest. I want to know what your breakthrough is, what your reboot is. How are you reinventing and rebooting your life? What shows would you like to hear more of? What information do you need to help you get back on track this year? And to do that, the best way to connect with me is actually through my new YouTube channel, and that is Sheila Mac Show on YouTube. And there you can see past recordings, and you can also see other information and shares that I have. And I would love for you to share in the comments there what you're needing more of and what you're rebooting this year, and how we can help you get back on track. Grab a copy of my new best-selling book, Bootstraps and Bra Straps, the formula to go from rock bottom back into action. Bootstraps and Bra Straps, now available on Amazon, Audible, and wherever fine books are sold. And now a message from our sponsor.